welcome everyone to another episode of the Minnesota Rack Stars podcast. And on today's episode, we're discussing a topic that everybody can relate to, and that is your neighbors. Some of you guys have good relationships with your neighbors, others not so much, and that's what we kind of wanted to go over, especially before the hunting season starts here. And maybe there's some things that you guys can take from this, and maybe not, but we'll find out in the end. I bring in Josh and Brandon and Cameron to kind of talk about the hunting relationship that these guys have, and how it kind of works out in the end for them, year in and year out. So with that, we're going to keep it short, and I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Hey, before we get going here, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our partners that's been with us for a long time, and that is Arctic Shield. Recently, they have come out with a new series called the Prodigy Series, and they have everything from early season to mid-season to late season. So if you're looking to upgrade your hunting apparel, I highly recommend checking out Arctic Shield. You can check them out on their social media pages or at arcticshieldoutdoor.com. Well, first of all, I got to thank you guys for coming over here tonight.
Yeah, we got to work tomorrow morning. I do. These guys probably don't got to work.
Me too.
Well, I don't really have to. It's going to be raining tomorrow, so I'll be good. So I won't have to mow lawns. But thanks for coming over here tonight. I think it's going to be a pretty good podcast. Hunting season's right around the corner, and I think it's always good to kind of go over, the elephant in the room, so to speak. Neighbors, right? Yeah. So what I did today is I brought in some neighbors here, and I'm going to kind of let them introduce themselves, who they are and kind of what they do, and we'll kind of go from there. Josh, you've been on here before, so why don't you start it up? Just remind everybody who you are.
Yeah, I'm Josh. I'm Joe's cousin. Like I said, I've been on here a couple times now, work in the ammunition industry, do a lot of hunting, and these are my buddies.
So who do we have over here?
My name's Cameron. I'm actually a nurse. I work all over the United States and travel around, so I'm not home all that often. But we kind of came to be friends with Josh, and over the years, and ended up becoming kind of neighbors. So kind of that's my story.
Yeah, cool. I can elaborate on the friend part.
Yeah.
And I'm Brandon. I'm Cam's brother.
Older brother.
I
don't know if people can see, but they don't look related at all. Not even a little bit.
How many times we've been asked if we're twins lately. But yeah. I already lost my train of thought of where I was going with it.
So what do you do for a living?
I work in the healthcare, do work in cardiac rehab. Been doing that for quite a while.
So it's kind of a house learning doctors over there is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of healthcare. Why don't you pull that mic just a little closer to your mouth there? There we go. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So what, obviously you guys had some type of influence to go into healthcare. What was it?
Mine was more some family history stuff, and then shadowing in it in college. I really enjoyed it. And then that, working with patients, talking with people, just like, kind of this podcast where we're going with building that relationship with your neighbors. You get to meet different people, different stories, that sort of thing. So really enjoyed that over the years.
That's cool.
I think Cam's just in it for the money.
No, I actually was going to be a teacher originally. I mentored some kids in high school and loved doing that. And then I ended up ran into a human biology class in high school and loved the human body. So I ended up helping people in a different way.
Yeah, that's cool. But my favorite class along those lines was anatomy, because it was just memorization. Yeah. What is this? What is this? What is this? I'm like, I can do that. And also you start connecting dots. That's where I have a tough time.
I like gym.
I do too, for some reason. Cool. That's cool to get a little background. And, I've only known you guys for a little bit. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really know you guys. Just seen you around a few times around the meat pole when the big bucks are hanging from the rafters. But it's cool that you guys do what you do and help people out. Like I've told people before, I'm in education too, and I don't know if there's a better feeling, going throughout life when you get to help somebody else out, and you guys in healthcare, that's pretty cool what you guys do, especially from what we've seen, in the last 4 years or so for you guys to stay in that line of work. That's pretty cool. I always ask my guests on the podcast here, what are your I'm catching this whiff of the skunk all
I
of a
know,
sudden comes
I
out of
know,
I know, it
nowhere.
Keep looking out. It's such a gorgeous night. We haven't smelt
Fresh.
it all night.
Pretty
Now it's like,
fresh.
where is it coming?
It took me about 40 minutes to get everything set up here. These guys waited patiently,
Just
and
in time.
the sun's starting to go down, and
Is that it? Right over there, right in
Just-
front of that bag?
beautiful.
No,
Or is that
That's
no,
a dog.
there was a
That is-
rooster over there too.
Yep.
Dog probably just found it.
They were just sitting here, and as soon as we started the podcast, there's a skunk. I could smell a skunk, but
That's all right.
we'll try to stay focused here. But I always ask my guests. Josh, he's already answered his in a previous podcast, but maybe each one of you guys go over one of your first, maybe like childhood memories in the outdoors or hunting. Just kind of paint a little picture of what that is for you guys.
I guess I got one that it kind of painted a picture of me in my first hunt that I remember physically with both my brother and my dad. You know, one of them old cattle pastures that's got a big old gnarly bur oak with 1,000,000 branches up in it. You could throw about 2-3 tree hooks and you could probably climb all the way to the top. And sitting out there with my dad, and we just both straddle a branch. My dad's standing on one, and you know, of course, some does come out, and we're silhouetted as all can be. And you know, my dad's like, "Don't move." And I got a branch between my legs. Both my legs are going numb. You know, the man parts are not feeling so nice. And I don't know. I just remember that being fun, seeing how deer react and can pick you out just like anything that's not supposed to be there.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
6 cents.
one of those things where Dad didn't care what we were. You know, it was about being in that moment. You know, so sharing that with your boys. That honestly was the same story that I was gonna say. For some reason that sticks, obviously resonates in my head of a moment with Dad. But I guess the other part would be like growing up. You know, when we weren't quite old enough to hunt yet, but Dad would come in and be like, "I got one," you know, or you know, you guys ready to go track, and sharing that moment where you get to go out and you know follow that blood trail to find that animal or whatever it was that he got. You know, that big thing, and then you know seeing that excitement, and I got to see that reciprocated when my dad got one this year, and my son came out and did the kind of blood trailing thing. So seeing that again now in that next generation was just as exciting for me, almost like I was, you know, got the deer or whatever it was. So
You bring up a good point, and that's why I like going back and digging deep into the memory bank. You think about what we had to go through as hunters. Maybe you guys, I don't know how old you guys are, but myself, I had to wait till I was 12 to go out hunting. Same thing with you, Josh?
12.
Were you guys 12 too?
mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, we're all the same. So we're all similar age.
Okay, so now you've taken your boy out hunting already.
Mhm.
Got a turkey this year, right? You know, and how old's your boy?
He'll be 6 in a week, so he's 5 right now.
So that's the one thing, and I've listened to other people's perspectives on this, but like they're creating, our state is creating a lot of opportunities, just like other states. They're creating a lot of opportunities for young hunters to get out there in a effort to gain more hunters, which, I mean, we need hunters, don't get me wrong. But do you think that by creating more of these opportunities, by letting hunters, you know, start earlier with age, allowing hunters to use crossbows, just creating a lot of opportunities for hunters, do you think that's helping or hurting, or don't you really care, you know, as far as that goes?
I guess I can jump in. I mean,
Sure.
I think it's somewhat situational, right? You know, like, yeah, by taking my boy out, and it kind of depends on the type of, you know, the mentality of the individual taking their youth out, or, you know, are they abusing it, or is it just 1-for-1 swap, right? So like, you know, I took Case out, and my whole season was dedicated to Case and my wife, right? Me shooting a bird was not on the radar because it was just about Case. So there's my 1-for-1, right? Instead of me killing my bird, it was about my son getting his bird instead, right? And if I had opportunity, sweet, you know, I'll go for it. It's like the way I kind of seeing some of this is how much is it exploiting like the management side versus actually like benefiting the individual, like making it a good opportunity for somebody that maybe wasn't going to hunt that's now going to hunt, or is it just making it a little bit easier for the guy that was already doing it, right? And like like not to get into like the deer hunting side of it, but like
Right.
the whole crossbow debate. Well, in my eyes, like you give me a rifle or a crossbow, and something's gonna die.
It's going down.
Right? Like I'm
Yep.
gonna kill something. Right. The whole part of like the archery season is the primitiveness of it. Right.
Mhm.
So that's where, my kind of my thoughts of like, are you exploiting something like to make it easier for somebody, like for actually the better, or is it going to impact it negatively?
Mhm.
Negatively, if that makes sense to you guys.
Yeah, definitely. What's your guys' thoughts?
I would say my biggest thought is for kids and stuff. I'm like, I'm
Mhm.
all for it.
Yep.
It's
Agreed.
I'm going to be just excited
Mhm.
as any kid that, you see those videos online, a kid shot his first buck or a doe,
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm.
I still remember me shaking my boots first time I shot my first doe. I'm like,
Mhm.
that just gets my blood going.
Yeah.
I don't care, it's the same thing when it comes to a big buck. My buddy shot a big one. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's
Let's go. Yeah,
let's go.
yeah.
Or, whatever gets your blood going. I
Yep.
mean, if a young boy wants to shoot that big 6-pointer that walked out, a little
Yeah.
6,
Go for it.
if he's shaking his boots,
Yep. I agree.
that's awesome. I want to see that in more people. And, with hunter numbers, it's hard to say they're on the decline, which they are, but
Right.
to keep this community going and the foundation we have that has been precedent by,
Yeah.
all of our dads and forefathers, I think it's important that we keep that instilled.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, what I always tell people, right? So my son, he's 5 when he shot his first turkey. Like that's young. Like, and I understand that. And my kind of my mentality with going into hunting with him and even athletics with him is like, I always tell people like I'm gonna feed the beast if the beast is there,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Like if my
Right.
son is showing passion
Mhm.
for hunting and he wants to go, he's coming in the truck and we're going hunting,
Mhm.
right? If he wants to go fishing, the same thing. If it's baseball, if it's
Right.
basketball, if it's gonna be football, like I'm gonna feed the beast. Like I mean, there's not we're gonna get into parenting strategy, but it's
Right.
like at some point you have to push in guide a little bit, but like and I feel like I can have a pretty good pulse on if he's ample or and wants to do it,
Yep.
then we're gonna do it, right? But then the other side of it as a parent, like I'm looking at it like, okay, is he proficient? Because I want him to have a good experience, right?
Mhm.
Like so we practice a lot with the 410.
Yep.
And like when he comes with me and I'm the one hunting, like I've taken him bow hunting in a ground blind, like now I'm doing it strategically, and I know we're probably just going to see a lot of does, and I'm not taking him into the timber or
Yep.
any of like the really really good spots. But it's like, I'm trying to educate and learn and teach as we go. And when he's
Right.
burnt out and tired, kind of what I call it is like, okay, 5 more minutes and one more snack, and then I see how many times I can get away with that to keep him focused.
There's the
Right.
carrot.
And
Yep.
then once I can tell he's shot, then we're done.
Yeah.
Like I know it, right?
Yeah.
So again, it kind of from what I call it is feeding the beast as much as I can, but then pushing it just a little further to just push them a little bit because
Mhm.
you want tough kids, you want
Right.
kids
Yep.
to have a little bit of resilience per se. And so
Mhm.
if you just give in as soon as they say I'm tired or I want to go home, well, you're not teaching that. Now you're caving into the other side. So it's a fine line and it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
But along the lines of like the kids hunting, like I do think it falls on the parents a little bit to make sure that they get that good experience, like I was talking about early. Like, right, the last thing I wanted, Case to do was to miss one or to not recover it, right?
Yep.
And it's the same thing when he goes for deer. I don't know if maybe he's going to be archery only, maybe he just wants to gun hunt. But damn sure either way, like I want to make sure his proficiency is there. And I mean, it happens. You're going to miss a deer. You're going to do this, right? But I'm going to try to get it as well as I can up to that moment, that first moment, to make sure he's proficient at his craft as well as he can be.
Brandon, what are your thoughts?
I'm all for that stuff, with the crossbows and whatnot. And again, it's kind of your look on it of what are you looking at it because it's easier perhaps, or is it something that is gonna get you, okay, now that I can do that, maybe I wasn't gonna go before, but now
Mhm.
I'll give this a try and get out, you're gonna get out in the outdoors. And the same thing with the kids and the ages and stuff like that. And if I've always been, if it gets your heart pumping and stuff like that, there's nothing wrong. I'm not a score person or
Mhm.
you got to shoot the big deer to be the hero kind of thing or whatever. That's it's if it gets your heart ticking, makes you happy. That's what I want to see out of it.
Yeah.
I want to see that excitement. If you're excited about it,
I'm excited.
that you did that, I'm excited
Yep.
and happy for you.
So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were interviewing Lee Lakosky, and he was talking about, he grew up in Minnesota, and I'd have to agree with a lot of people out there, like people that come from Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, I would lump in there, I'm not saying other people in other states don't have an extreme passion for hunting, but if it feels like us in these states that struggle to consistently grow big bucks, throughout the state, just have that drive because we're trying to achieve it yet. You know what I mean? And Lee was talking about how now when they go out, they're seeing a ton of deer every time. So his kids, as they're coming up, they go out in the woods like, oh, we saw 500 deer again. We saw 500 deer, we saw $200, whatever it was. So what he's doing, he's not allowing his son to shoot a deer with a muzzleloader or a rifle until he kills a deer with a bow. Just to get him to understand the appreciation of the resource out there. And it's not just, oh, I step my back door and there's a deer, bang, I shoot it.
Yeah.
So he's and I like that strategy. Because and I think that's what drove me too, was having to wait till I was 12. I spent many sleepless nights.
You couldn't wait.
I couldn't wait,
Right.
because it was withheld from me. And I just think, this is just my own personal opinion, and everybody, has their own opinion, and we have our rules out there and you go with them. But in my opinion, it's like the longer you wait, the more you're going to appreciate it in the end. And that might come from a maturity standpoint too, but it's all situational. 100%.
Yep.
The other thing too, I was thinking about the other day was, if the state does this for recruitment strategy, I kind of look at it like I taught with a guy where his daughter worked for a Major League Baseball team, and she was in charge of putting together different strategies to get people to the ballpark. So they'd have a family night or whatever, and she was trying to do all these different things. And it's like, to me, like some of these things that the state is doing and other states are doing is almost like saying, hey, the first 5,000 fans get a free hot dog.
Yeah.
Is that going to fill the seats? Free hot dogs aren't going to fill the
For a
seats.
night.
Well, yeah, but still, you're not going to fill the stadium.
Right.
You know what fills the stadium? Big time players.
Yeah.
Wins.
Yep.
Like making your team the best. And I've heard other people talk about this too. You want to recruit hunters, have a great resource for them to go out there and energize them to go out, in the field and hunt, So it's like, do you create all the people coming to the stadium by giving free handouts, or do you bring people in the stadium by being really good at what you have and what you're producing?
And I would say that kind of plays into like why Minnesota, Pennsylvania, because we have like a great outdoors. Like, we don't have like the best like great big giant bucks like Iowa,
right?
But we do in totality of outdoor recreation. Like a lot of those states are pretty well, sought after for doing something, right? Like whether it's walleye fishing the Great Lakes, something, so that might play into like a little bit of what you're talking about, like the Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Plus, we don't have those great big giant bucks.
Right.
So like we really want to get those great big giant bucks.
Yeah. Hey, Minnesota nice.
Yeah,
Minnesota
exactly,
nice.
Exactly.
All right, we're gonna get out of this rabbit hole before we go any deeper. So like I said, our topic tonight is neighbors, and the hunting season is right around the corner here, and we just kind of want to address the elephant in the room, if you will, when it comes to hunting. Neighbors are neighbors until hunting season, and these guys here have developed a really good relationship with each other when it comes to hunting. How did you guys become hunting neighbors or property neighbors or whatever you want to call it?
You want me to jump in, Brando, or you want to go for it?
You had the story done pretty good.
Well, there was a night, and it was probably January 22nd, like a Tuesday night, I think, and I scored. I don't know. I had my high scoring my basketball night, and I scored a bunch of points on Brandon. So that's how me and Brandon got introduced.
Oh yeah. Yep. Mhm.
No,
How many points you put up?
Dunked it on me.
19.
Well,
That's it?
you weren't in
Come on, man.
Princeton when we broke our high school scoring record against Princeton in Princeton.
Because I wasn't there.
Yeah, because
No,
you weren't
no,
there.
I wasn't a great ball player.
We're a couple years apart.
No, so kind of how the relationship really started is, me and Brandon were a grade apart. We went to opposing schools in neighboring cities. So like, kind of grew up like in high school. Like I knew of Brandon. My mom taught actually in your school district, so kind of like the last name was there. Like smaller communities or whatever. So we knew of each other in high school, and then I ended up going to college, and meet all these other dudes from another neighboring town. We're hanging out, and one of the gals was actually dating Brandon, and I was like, "Oh, I know Brandon, right?" And so we kind of came buddies, and I don't know if it was me needed a ride home or you needed a ride home one weekend
I
or
think
what.
I rode home with you in your big old green truck.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't
jeez.
remember. We were linking up and we're talking, and like I knew what town he was from, but I just didn't know where. And all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, where are you at?" And I was like, "Oh, my grandpa, where I've been hunting the last 4 years. Like, he just built a house not that long ago, right before went to college." And it's like, "Oh, it sounds like we're right in the same neck of the woods." Well, it turns out, and this is after we've kind of been hanging out at college and
Right.
like going to parties and bullshitting about hunting, going
Yeah.
duck hunting and stuff. And it was like, turns out their neighbor, like their properties butt up to each
Butt
other,
up, okay.
and we're like, "Holy shit, this is awesome!"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I would, honestly, like I would say the first couple of years, it was like, this is like early on, like in our hunting careers, where like we really started turning the corner on like
Just started doing
Just
food plots
starting.
and
I mean, just scratching the surface, right?
Yep.
Like it was still, I remember
very
like
new.
how I grew up, all day sits, and then Brandon would text me, "Yeah, 9:30," and they're having this great big brunch, and I'm like, I'm freaking
Over
starving.
deer opener.
Yeah, on deer opener, because I'm
Mom's
up.
karma rolls just pull you right.
Yeah,
in.
and
man.
I'm sitting there. I already ate my lunch by
That's
9:30, and they're having caramel rolls and biscuits and gravy. And then in the back of my mind, I was like, "These freaking lightweights, they're never going to shoot a deer because they're already at breakfast. They only sat for an hour." So that's kind of the introduction story of like how we got going. Is it was just kind of like that small tall thing. I knew somebody, kind of knew Brandon from high school, and it turns out we're freaking neighbors.
Yeah.
This guy's kind of okay.
Yeah, and then slowly, that relationship grew,
Yep.
and now we have a great relationship. In fact,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
going to your wedding in Montana in a week. If that
Yeah.
kind of goes to show people of
Yeah.
like how good a relationship it has been,
And I would say we transitioned to I myself was more of a waterfowl hunter
Oh,
Mhm.
early on.
even us,
and-
right?
and-
Yeah, we
and-
all were.
we've kind of transitioned more of where on a waterfowl season is kind of like a fall time thing. It seems like what it turned out to be. And now it's like we get this whole like between neighbor relations and food plots, and it's like I can extend that feeling
longer.
longer.
And the other thing is too, like I always kind of going back, like except for like when we're traveling to hunt out of state for waterfowl, like around where we're at, it's like I can go shoot 2 wood ducks, or I might be able to see a great big giant buck.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yeah, I'm tired of chasing wood ducks, or
Yeah.
shooting one
Right.
mallard or something.
Right.
Like we've had some exceptional waterfowl hunts over the years, but
Yeah.
you just kind of transition, and I think you see that with a lot of hunters actually, like hardcore waterfowl. Then all of a sudden, like you kind of get burnt out of that up early,
Yeah. For me, it was too.
up late, and then you just have the opportunity to extend the season. A
Right.
lot
For
more.
me, it was too that you got land or access to land, versus sometimes you're gonna hunt birds on a field or something like that, but otherwise you got to be traveling to water to
Yeah.
find them. Where mom and dad's or where you're at
Yep.
too, with us being, it's like you got access to that, and
Mhm.
that the stuff that you can do, that's gonna be there. You can go out and hunt whenever you
Yep.
need or whatever. So
We're opportunistic
yes,
waterfall hunters now. If we got
pretty
birds,
much.
if we got birds where we know we can go, then
There
we
you go,
go.
get 'em.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
here. Okay.
As my grandpa's old adage, you got to shoot them while they're there.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. And
Mhm.
most of the times they're not there.
Yeah.
So like I said, when it comes to hunting, things can get pretty heated between neighbors. Was it love at first sight, or was there some rocky times?
I would never say there was rocky times. I think maybe like early on there was a few times, like, and I'll be honest, like the first nice buck I shot, like I was like, got him on camera, and I was like, I ain't fucking telling no one, right? And then I think I finally was like to Brandon one day, I was like, hey man, like I keep getting this deer on camera, like just so you guys know, right? Like, and I was a little bit more secretive at that time. Now I'm like an open book. I mean, we all are to each other,
Right.
anyways, right? And so, but I don't think there was ever anything rocky. I
No.
mean, I feel like I maybe got like the deer itch a hair before you guys. So I felt like I pushed you guys more and like, dude, you got to food plots here or like hunt here type of thing. Like I felt like I was maybe too pushy up front with like some of the like strategy or maybe like take it to the next level type of thing. Like there's a lot of good opportunity here, but I never felt ill will
No.
towards you
No,
guys.
not
Only
at
time
all.
I ever got pissed is like when I got the Carmel roll pictures.
You want to stop by? Want me to run one out to you?
Yeah.
You guys had a really good year this past year. Cameron, why don't you kind of elaborate? I'll let you start on this past year, and you can share what you want. I mean, you don't gotta let everything out, but just kind of let everybody. Know. I mean, you guys worked together, and good things happened this last year.
I mean, from this last year, I mean, it was really fun, that's for sure. I mean, I obviously I'm a little more limited on time. I traveled from out west. I hunted 3 states on the way home, and I got home right about at the good time. So
He hunted for a day and shot a nice buck. See ya. No.
I mean, I was pleasure to take, and it gave me the opportunity and it got my heart going. It wasn't necessarily the buck I would say I was after, but when he came out, he did the exact opposite thing as where I thought a good deer was going to come from, and my legs started to get that twitch, and he gave me a shot at
Yeah.
real close. So I wasn't going to pass him up, but we've obviously had other opportunities throughout our group, and that was beyond exciting to hear. Your storybook for that particular buck kind of closes, but you're glad to see it all play out
Yeah.
the way it did.
So, do you have a few years of history with this deer?
This one, the one I had taken, it was kind of those ones where it happened so fast. It kind of was more of like a afterthought. I knew I was going to shoot him, and then it all plays together, and you're like, okay, I know that was an 8 point or whatever, and it's like, is that this one or that one? That kind of thing kind of plays through your head, and it's one of those things of we didn't have a whole lot of history, but judging from neighbors' trail cameras and stuff, and I had reached out to a couple other guys, and they had a little history with them as well, so it was interesting to see how much ground that deer had covered, and how he had changed his habits from fall to summer and all those things. So
I'd say, I guess from my outside, that was more of a buck like midsummer we started like paying attention to. Like it was one of those like not year over year history,
Right.
but it was more like all of a sudden we got a lot more pictures of him coming into the
It
fall.
was almost and it was almost like a surprise in a way.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
You weren't expecting it with not knowing that much history, but and all of a sudden he's there.
It was one of those bucks that kind of left early mid-September.
Right.
Yeah.
And then came back November 2nd or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like we hadn't seen him in a long time, and all of a sudden he's there.
Yep.
Did you find out where he went? Like how far away? Did anybody share any pictures? Like how far he ended up going away from you guys?
The nearest I can figure would be just under half miles. The one, the confirmed one that I have.
Sure.
Other than that, and that was summer.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a velvet picture. So that was way early.
Yeah.
But
Josh, I know you've told your story before. You also shot a good buck, but I mean, you guys were sharing pictures back and forth. Now, like, is it to the certain point where every single picture you get, are you sharing, or is it like?
I would say it's mostly like it's bucks that we kind of know are notable, right? Like if we sent every picture of every single 1.5-year-old, unless it's like something unique,
right?
Then normally like we're not sending all those bucks. But if it's like one we obviously know, or one that moved in, or if it's like a good up and comer that it's like, hey, like that one, this is maybe one we should keep our hands off and try to let him slip through the cracks this year, or hope for that it does. Like then we talk about it. But I mean, we share a lot of almost everything.
pretty much everything.
Yeah. Anytime I get a photo, it's it's sent to them right away.
What is it that
I mean, I don't share that photo of that-
Sometimes these guys
the
just forget.
fawn mule kicking the mock scrape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brandon, what do you because I think the biggest thing is like when it comes to neighbors, the one thing it ends up becoming is are you competitive or are you cooperative? And to me it sounds like you guys are more cooperative than competitive. And what keeps you guys in the cooperative mindset versus competitive? Because you still got to be competitive. I mean, you're going out there to try to kill this deer or a deer or whatever.
Right.
But what keeps you being more cooperative?
I mean, just being on the same page. I mean, you got the right mindset with the same, we sit here and talk like this. You love to, sit here, have a drink, talk about the season upcoming, that sort of thing. And we're out there helping each other with the food plot thing and whatnot. Like, okay, we're gonna help get this person. Is there when Cameron's been out working, Josh has been helping me as an extra hand doing some stuff at times.
And there's reciprocity on my side
right.
too. Like
And
they'll
it's
help me
like
out if I can't get up there to mow or to fertilize or something. They'll
Right.
cover my stuff.
doing that, and there's anyone else out there too with like a neighbor's thing. It's like cost is a big issue. If you don't got farm equipment or tractor, we've done a lot of stuff with just ATV, being able to, hey, do you want to, one of our upgrades was going from a backpack sprayer to, we all split the cost of an ATV sprayer, booms on it. That's that,
Yep.
from taking it from walking all across your food plots with a sprayer to an ATV sprayer, that's a big difference.
Big time.
Splitting some costs like that. And just the camaraderie between us and stuff too. It's like you're all on the same team essentially. It's like he gets that deer. It's like I'm just excited, to be able to see that, or whatever. Versus one of us get it. You're like, you're jacked. You're like, oh God, I'm ready. I want to go see this
Yeah.
thing, or or someone gets an encounter with a deer or something like that. It's like you're all rooting for each other. It's
100%.
not all like about me, or I don't ever feel like it's about this one guy or focused on them. It's all, you're all excited to see if someone's got a story to say, or like I said, an encounter or something like that, or when someone gets one, it's like, you're there for them. And that's what I think is the big thing. It's never been a competition or about who gets what.
I think we all want to see each other win, right?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
the only thing I'll say, I'll disagree with Brandon this year, is like I do really want one person to get a deer this year,
Mhm.
and it's him.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Brandon's been a little bit.
100%.
Brandon's been a
I've
little
been
bit
on a little
snake.
dry
He's been
spell.
snake bit
Been
the
on a
last few
dry
years,
spell.
So, but yeah,
I know how that goes, man.
Yeah,
I know
It's
how
all
that
right.
goes.
It's all right. But
It happens.
I've kept my head up. I had good encounters this year with my own season with different stuff. Memories that I'll never forget of how things went down or whatever. But
And learning every day.
exactly,
Oh, yeah,
every
if you're
day.
not out in the woods and you don't learn something every time you're there, of like, okay, all right, we'll never do that again, or you take something away from what
So
you're doing.
let me ask you this. So you've been snake bit here for a little while. How come you just haven't lowered the standards and just said, hey, you know what? Here comes a little whatever 2.5-year-old in. I'm gonna shoot it because I haven't shot a deer in a while.
Right? I mean, I had an opportunity, I guess, with the muzzle loader at one, and he had a couple broken tines on him and stuff, and it just wasn't. It didn't get the heart going, that sort of thing, and just from like our area again, of like how we've kind of agreed on some things with the smaller deer. They're not gonna get bigger, right? If you don't let them go.
Mm.
But that's again, I'm not gonna be against any neighbors against that. It gets your heart ticking.
Mhm.
That's just fine,
I think that's a great way of putting it. I mean, when people ask what is a shooter, when the heart gets going, that's a shooter. The thing that I have a tough time with is, and this is where I think a lot of hunters end up, butting heads with other neighbors, is when they end up shooting a deer because the neighbor was going to shoot it, not because they got excited to shoot it.
Yeah.
They were going to shoot it because the neighbor was going to shoot it, and I don't want you to get the deer, so I'm going to shoot it. And that's where I think you end up
Right.
developing, in my mind. This is my own personal opinion here, okay, people. So like in my mind, that's where all of a sudden people start getting a little frustrated.
Mhm.
right? Because now all of a sudden it's me versus you. It's not, let's work together here, build the best deer herd possibly in our area. It's nope, it's everyone for themselves, and we know what happens in return when you get that type of,
Yeah, feuds aren't
hunter
good
out
with your
there.
neighbors.
No, it's just you develop relationships, you develop arguments.
Yep.
Conservation officers are being called out, and it's just they
not
get the
fun.
property line dispute and all that stuff. Like it just it turns into a not a good thing. So it's like, I mean, if you're worried about shooting deer because your neighbors are going to shoot them, in my mind, like I said, it's my own personal opinion, you're shooting deer for the wrong reason. Shoot deer because you want
Oh.
to. Shoot deer because you enjoy the meat. Shoot deer because, you know what, this got me excited. Because in my mind, you're doing a disservice to the animal and degrading the animal by saying, hey, I'm going to shoot you because my neighbor's going to shoot you.
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
I mean, these animals are, I mean, in all honesty, this is my favorite hobby to do is go hunting and strategize for it. And we care about these animals. This is why
Yeah,
we're sitting here right
Yeah,
now.
we're talking
And
about it.
to shoot a deer because my neighbor's going to shoot it, in my mind, for lack of a better term, it's BS.
Yeah.
Shoot the deer because you want
Right.
to and you enjoy
Exactly.
hunting and all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's my take on it.
And I think we can all agree if that, say that one slips through the cracks, every, I would say, older buck that adds that year of age class,
Yeah.
they have been boogered by a hunter. They have seen cars. They have done this.
Oh, yeah.
Every year they are older, there's a reason
They're
you'll get
older.
one encounter every 4 years because
It's a compounding
they're
effect.
smart.
Yeah. And so, that's kind of all we look for. Like, I don't want the listeners to think, we got like a great big giant piece of property that we managed together. It's really
Yeah, what do you guys got for
Yeah.
acreage
maybe 360, 400 somewhere. I don't know.
combined?
Combined,
broken up.
between, yeah,
And
and
broken up.
it's not all one.
it's not all consecutive,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, they're close enough to where, some of it, most of it is conjoined,
Mhm.
right? But I hunt a permission property that's conjoined to all of them, and
As do we.
yep,
Yep.
and same to you. And so, but I call it like we pseudo manage, like we do what we can do,
Mhm.
but it's not like we got 1,000 acres and we have hard set rules like nothing under 140 or 4-point rule or 130, right? Like if our spouses go out and they shoot a 1-year-old and they're happy, we're freaking excited. We're all drinking beers. It's a dragon party, right? And that kind of goes back to like our relationship. It's like now when any of us shoot a deer, like they're like kind of like brothers in a way. It's like they're one of the first people after my dad, my grandpa, my wife. It's pretty much these guys that are going to get a call. Then not that if any of my other buddies listen, like that are like some of my best friends. It's not that, but it's like we've done so much work together for these individual deer and like strategize that it's like in the same thing. When they call me, I expect like I'm going to be over there as
Yeah.
fast as I can to help drag, take pictures, and
And
celebrate
we-
celebrate the victory. Right? We all won.
And it doesn't
Right.
even matter if
Right.
it's you don't even have to kill one. It's like, oh, I saw him. I saw
Yeah.
him.
Oh yeah.
That-
I mean, as
that
soon as
phone-
it's
that phone call after
It's
the
like,
hunt.
oh boy.
I'm probably the worst because like Brandon be like, oh, I saw a good one tonight, and like as soon as I know it's about 30 minutes after sundown, and I know he's walked back, I'm like, who was it? Like where did he come from? Like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's the same thing both ways. We're always trying to pick up on each other information, and we strategize that way.
I think it's just the excitement too of hunting, right? Like maybe it's not gonna work out where all of a sudden, okay, you're learning about this deer, but it's about deer in the future. You're learning about deer behavior,
Right.
Oh yeah.
like what did he do? Which way did he
Yep.
come from? Did he use the wind? Was the back, wind at his back? What was it? But yeah, it's
Oh,
it's
and there's a lot
little
of
tool you can add every time.
100% there's historical data like that we're all catching up on, and now it's like, oh, like you got a picture here, there, and you start linking up times together,
Right.
and it's like you're building that
that story.
that story, and
Mhm.
not the story, but you're also building that history of those travel patterns and everything. So like it's only helping all of us.
Right.
And
Some of those times you're like, holy moly, he's moved that far.
and all of a sudden, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
there's been a lot of like we've named bucks
Wow.
in the past like Romer and stuff like that
Mhm.
because it's like they're way out on the farthest south piece of theirs and way on my north piece, and it's like you would have never thought.
You
and
throw a dart
you,
at the
and you,
board,
you've
and that
never
deer
seen
could
them
be
on the
anywhere.
hoof. Or
You've
whatever,
never seen them on the
it's
hoof.
like,
But they're all over your property,
I don't know if you guys listened to Dr. Bronson Strickland at all.
I have quite
yeah,
a bit.
you guys listen to him at all? He works for is it Mississippi State?
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of deer research, and they've collared so many deer, and I was actually listening to a couple of their podcasts today just because I like science-based research on
And you're
these
on the
deer.
mower all day.
Yeah, well, that too, yeah. But like, I mean, just like myself, I'm sitting here and we're talking about stuff that we've seen, right?
Yeah.
These are people that have actually studied deer and have
Oh,
tracked deer.
yeah.
So like, I'm gonna listen to these guys before any podcasters or
right,
whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everybody thinks like, oh, his core area is right here, and this is where he is, and this is his bedroom and
Mhm.
whatnot. They say, what is it, like a sedentary buck, like a home range buck, will cover like it's like 1,200 acres.
Yeah. A mile. It's about like a mile radius, right?
And it's like so for a person to think like a buck is just going to stay here on this 40
Yeah.
and that's it. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
they're
kidding
all on
yourself.
they're all on that guy's property.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, right.
And it's not that way. We see it all the time.
I mean, maybe there's only 40 acres of woods and 12 square miles. Maybe there might be one that stays close, but maybe
Right.
still.
Yeah,
Right,
they're
even that.
roaming, and I think like they in a 24-hour period, they're covering like 400 yards.
Yep.
Like that's like a 24-hour period. They're covering 400 yards. So I was just listening. Like, okay, so I mean, just because there's nothing on your trail camera, you never know. You might be 400 yards away, something might come through.
Right.
But on the other hand, you get these people that get really intense about keeping a deer on their property. Good luck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
can increase.
I think you're stacking the odds.
Yeah, you're using the odds. You're stacking them in your favor by having food plots out there and scrapes out there and all that stuff. Yes, but you got to remember, like myself, I got a 40. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? On this piece, I got a 60 up there. It's like I'm just doing whatever I can do to try to get those deer
Yeah.
to utilize mine every now and then.
Yep.
It's not going to stay here forever, but yeah, like you're talking about the bucks that you guys were going after, all of a sudden they were here, then they were gone.
Yeah.
They were talking about excursions. This buck
Oh, there's-
swam a mile across the river. It was a mile across
Yeah.
this river, swam across it.
Mississippi.
Yeah, across the Mississippi, and then all of a sudden came back, and then the following year, about the same time, he swam
Did the
across
same,
the Mississippi
yeah.
over to Louisiana, and like
Right.
it's like these deer are gonna do what they were born to do, or
Yep.
or when they were born in one spot, they're gonna go back to that spot and check it out. So it's like, people get so wound up and so like this buck, this is my buck or whatever. It's
Right.
like, man, just
It's yeah.
you got to
it's
work
like-
with
it's
each
in
other. You got to
anybody's
work with
game.
each
It
other.
is.
But working with each other, I'm like, we've been established patterns on
Oh,
deer or certain types of deer that we're trying to go after. And, without the intel from Josh, I mean,
and vice versa.
and vice versa, it's like I greatly value that intel because, it's been I would say it's benefited us in a tenfold of
Oh, 100%.
how much we've understand of, could be weather patterns or,
Or other camera
know-
placements. Trying
Oh,
to
how many
figure
times
out
have we
the
moved the
next
camera?
buck.
Then it's like,
Oh,
that's how that
there
SOB
it
is getting from
you're
here
like,
to there.
holy crap.
and we've been trying to figure it out, and you move it a couple hundred
We've
yards
had
on.
it happen where it's literally been that day, that night. It's like
Now we know.
there's another puzzle piece.
Yeah,
You know
yep.
that
you have X
Granted
and
it-
Z and
Mm-hmm.
just plug in Y and then you found where he's moving. It's
Yeah.
like, but you're moving Y, all over the place to try to figure it out.
Right. And one other thing to kind of piggyback off that is like, not only we have a very strong relationship, and it's different because our properties are buttoned up next to each
Mhm.
other, but we also have good relationships with another crew of good buddies that we're good buddies with.
Mhm.
They don't hunt like right next to us, but like basically across the road are their
Mhm.
properties. And like how many times like, oh, that buck always disappeared in, October 15th, and he comes back in the end of November. And now we're good buddies with them, and it's like them guys are getting it on camera,
Yeah.
a mile away, and it's living there all year. So it's like
Mhm.
we, not only do we have good relationships, but we try to have good relationships with any other hunters in the air for the most part.
Yeah.
Like there's some, rifle hunters that they just come in rifle hunt during the season. And we don't have much communication, but I would say for the most part, most of the bow hunters in that area that are, pretty adamant that, and are diligent and that are out there quite a bit. Like we try to stop and talk to most of them that we see, and just build a small relationship. We
Mhm.
don't have to give them all the information or do that, but it's like, hey, what do you? Granted, those other crew, like we are good buddies, so like
Right.
that ones are like, yep, we got a picture of these bucks, and vice versa. A lot of times there's not a lot of crisscrossing bucks, but there's a few times
Yeah.
where it's
And
like
there's
they have a good chance of killing one of the bucks that we're hunting as
Mhm.
we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you never know what
Right.
And when they shed that velvet, it's like all of a sudden they
Oh,
disappear.
yeah.
Or
Oh,
vice
yeah.
versa. It's like
happen. They've
you're
been here all summer.
you're
Yeah.
moving stuff around, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, he's over there. Well, he
Yeah.
probably ain't come back unless a doe brings him over
Yep.
or something. But it's like, go get him.
Yeah. There are weird times though, like where we have seen like a few bucks where it's like I get a shit ton of pictures of them 200 yards from their property line.
Mm-hmm.
They never get a picture of them, and vice versa. Like that buck you killed, I never got a picture of him. It wasn't that far away
Yeah,
where you
it's
killed them,
crazy
No,
but
how-
you had tons of pictures of them.
Yep.
So it does seem like to some degree, and for some bucks, there's not a lot of overlap,
They have
even though
like
they're
an-
close. But it could just be that that's the outside of their range, and it doesn't hit mine. You know,
What one thing have you seen maybe on both your properties that has played out to be successful for both of you? I don't know. Maybe there is. Maybe there isn't. Maybe there's something that you guys have learned over the years that, hey, this really works.
like you mean between us, like communicating? Or?
No, I'm talking about just a hunting strategy. Like you know each other's properties.
Mhm.
Like, is there something that your property has that yours has, or maybe there's something that yours has that yours doesn't, where all of a sudden it's like, you know what, man, whatever Josh has, I wish I had that because it seems like these bucks really go there. Or, I mean, is there anything that you notice on each other's properties that, like, man, that's really beneficial to have?
I would say that both, in my opinion, both the property I hunt and then their property is like they're kind of similar
Okay.
in terms of egg versus timber versus brick bottom,
Sure.
Yep.
right? It's very similar in like
Right.
any of the deer that I've killed in the last few years, like I felt like they had just as good a shot or better than
Yep.
me.
I
It's
mean,
just it's kind of
as-
right place, right
yeah.
time.
Exactly.
I think it's
just
kinda
as many
feeling out-
pictures or intel,
Yeah.
as far as sharing things, and you just
Yeah.
It's all
part
on
of
that
it's
learning
luck,
curve.
being
I mean,
in
a
the
lot
right
of times
spot.
I'm jealous because they get to do a lot more property management stuff than I do, just because I have a more strict grandfather and
Yeah.
he doesn't maybe like to do a lot of the stuff that I would like to do, and which is
Yeah,
fine.
yep.
And one of the properties I have is a permission, so it's just like I just don't get the opportunity to do as much stuff. So if anything, I feel like I'm like always like looking across like grass is greener type of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that you guys are doing the same thing on my side. Like there's give and take both ways, and both properties they're similar, but there's differences.
I'm sure it's all kind of like, to me, it's kind of on that learning curve. Us as hunters, you start out and we see it. I mean, there's neighbors and people that we've gotten to know, like me and Josh always approach, or Brand too. We always approach, other bow hunters that are on these permission farms that we've been on before. Is like, they're on just a different part of the learning curve. So you try to, you're not pressing your ideas on there, but you're telling them like, this is what I'm doing, or here's where I'm going. And as they learn, they kind of figure that out. It's the same thing as on our
Yeah.
own properties.
Mhm.
I mean, heck, how many years ago I wasn't looking at bedding areas.
Yeah.
What is that?
Right.
I think if anything, it's just like how we've progressed in strategy.
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
biggest thing is like, being smarter about where we're going, being a lot smarter about the wind,
learning from a mistake. You're like,
exactly.
I'm not going to do that or approach this
And
way
then using
again."
any like recent intel to make, more educated decisions, right?
And now that's like bounced off of what we share as intel of, from whether it's be trail camera pictures of
Mm-hmm.
how that deer was using it on this day
Yep.
versus, I bumped him and he was in the area that I didn't think he was going to
Exactly.
be in,
Mhm.
or anything. It could be, I need to go around all that because there's a heck of a lot of does in there.
Oh,
I can't
right.
do that again.
Yep.
Because I have no idea what I bumped.
Yep.
Elsewhere.
And there's a lot of communication too, like, right, like we piggyback each other off our hunts. Like pretty much anytime I go out, like, hey guys, like this is where I'm going, right? And so that gives them the opportunity to be like, hey, they can get like to my downwind side just in case that buck's in that bedding area and I don't think he's in there, but he might be. They can hunt that downwind side because maybe I bump him that way, and vice versa. Like we play off each other, right?
Mhm.
Or we know of like one core bedding area that splits the properties. It's
Yep.
like we kind of like we can kind of surround it in a sense. Like I don't know that we've ever shot anything doing that, but it's like
Right.
we play to each other's plays
Yep.
too.
That's the tough part for me. Like, on multiple properties that I hunt, you got neighbors that toe the line with their stands and they're right on the edge. It's like, well, do I even go out there right now? Because if
Yep.
they're sitting right on that line, they're going to blow everything before it even gets to me. So should I even go out? So it's nice you guys are communicating, along those lines. And like you said, if you're working together and you understand where the bedding areas are, and because just because a deer is bedded on yours, Josh, doesn't mean that it can't wander over their
A
property.
lot of times they do bad and they
Y-
go south.
Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean,
And here we're
it's
sitting across the river, and they're all going north.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's weird how it
Right,
works. It's
I
weird
know
how
what
it
you're
works.
talking about.
Yeah. But
But-
it is good, like, because there's times like they'll tell me what stand they're hunting, and like, okay, I'm not going to go in that area. It's like we're too close. I don't
Yeah,
want to.
right,
I don't want to goof them up, and I know they're already in, or and vice versa. It's like, oh, Josh is down there, but we'll go on another spot.
so obviously, I mean, not everyone is going to end up developing a relationship like you guys, and I'll let you guys kind of go first. Like, what would you recommend to people out there? And Brandon, start with you. What would you recommend to people out there? Maybe if they don't have a working relationship, try to start building a working relationship with their neighbors to try to get things moving in the right direction. And maybe try to, I don't know, bury the hatchet of previous issues.
Let their little brother do it.
Yeah,
Send them over.
yeah,
Send them
Cam.
over.
Send them in. I don't know if you're out and about, you see them on the road. We always got neighbors come up the road on side by sides. You give them a wave, or you see them out, whatever, run into them in town. Just chat it up with them. We've done that before as well. Just saying, like we have. Just kind of give them our spiel of, I don't want to ever come off as pressing of like, oh, you got to shoot this bigger deer or whatever it is, to let the little ones grow. Again, gets your heart pumping. I'm all for it, but I've just come across nicely with it, and you just kind of tiptoe as far as how they kind of take you. Maybe ask them a few questions of, or what are you looking for? Are you looking for maybe meat for the freezer or something like that, or looking to get a doe down, or if they say something about a decent buck or something like that. That's how I kind of guide with what I
Mhm.
might ask them about some stuff, and and if it feels like they might not have the same maybe like particular views of like some management things, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be respectful of, I always try to address like, okay, I might see their truck on this permission property that I might be on, and be like, okay, okay, or if I'm going out there, I'll text them, where are you gonna sit tonight? I just want to not be affecting them with my wind,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
be creeping into where they might be expecting a deer to come from, and always been respectful of that, as well as they've kind of showed it vice versa to me too, just like Josh was saying between us, but other places with neighbors as yeah, just seeing how they kind of play off of it with that, and just being respectful of it is always like to be, not pressing of anything.
Yep.
And you get a feel for what they say, and kind of take it from there of what their thoughts might be on some stuff. So
Cam?
I'm kind of you don't feel it out necessarily. You do, but also in essence, is you never know an opportunity till you actually get it. But like say you got a neighbor that you don't want to show a big buck picture to.
Mhm.
Well, put it this way: say he didn't know he was out there. That big buck is going to be hard to kill no matter what. Doesn't matter. I don't care if you got a rifle, muzzleloader,
Mhm.
archery. He's going to be hard to kill. I think we can all agree on that. Is say I don't show him that picture, and he shoots that 1.5-year-old or whatever, fill the freezer or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Say I show him that 3.5, 4.5, whatever it is, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna hold out." Well, that deer's got better odds of slipping through the cracks than
The
anybody
1-year-old.
else,
Right.
right?
Point.
So, do you show him that picture, and hopefully he holds out because he wants to kill the big boy, have the big boy story and
Yep.
everything?
Mhm.
Great, but that's also going to prove a potential of he slips through the crack.
The
He's
next
a year
ones,
bigger,
right? Yeah.
but then it's also he didn't kill those 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. All those just got a year older. A lot of people I feel like tread that line of I don't want to show them this big buck picture,
Mhm.
but I mean look at I would say the big deer we've killed. 1 sighting, 2 sightings, if that, in their 4 or 5
Tons
years.
of photos.
Tons of
Right,
photos.
right.
But have you ever seen them on a hoof?
Right.
There's a
Very
reason you
rare, yeah.
haven't.
That's a
Very
good
rare.
point.
And I
So-
lean that way too. I would say
It's very tough.
we're more open. Me and you are
Yeah.
much more open. And like when I see another bull, I'd rather communicate up front and lay it all out there. you know, maybe I'm not always like coming off. I'm not going to be the first. It's not the first picture I'm going to show them. Right,
Mhm.
it's gonna be the biggest one that I got a picture of. But
Mhm.
I'll try to be as open as I can because I want them to trust me.
Yep.
Right, and I want to be able to trust what they're saying
Yep.
too. Right, like, and that's part of the relationship. Right, a good relationship, there's
Mhm.
trust both ways. It's
Mhm.
mutual.
Mhm.
Right, and so you know, I my opinion is I'd rather have them hold out and the young ones go if that's what they please.
Yep.
Right, like if they shoot the young one, great. I'm happy for them. But at the same time, like, there's just one more that's gonna keep going, and like
Yep.
in a couple years, you say he'd shoot the big one the year you show him the big one, he ain't gonna shoot one every year,
Yeah. Yep.
right? And so it just kind of comes into fruition.
That's that
It-
cumulative effect. Of,
Exactly,
you know,
Right.
and that's kind of what we've been going for,
Yep.
right? You know, it's like I said, our spouses, my grandpa, like a lot of people have shot some pretty nice bucks the last 5-6 years. I mean, we're not shooting like mega giants, like
Yep.
booners and stuff, but we're shooting really nice
Deer,
deer,
yeah.
really solid deer. And like every time one slips through, it's like it
Yep.
goes back to that compounding thing. Like they just got a little bit smarter, they just got a little bit older, they just got a little bit harder to kill, and like that's
Right.
what we want running around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's tough because say you got a small parcel and I just remember one time I was out hunting and I was talking to the neighbor and told him I passed up a good buck, really good buck, and next day there was 3 vehicles parked.
right.
They were
Right.
out there hunting where the previous day there was nothing out there, so it's tough.
Oh, it is, and like
Right.
I think if anything, like I'm like this past year with the admin to the crossbow opening, like
Mhm.
I felt like the first month of bow season there was more vehicles in our couple section area than ever before. And it was like, what is going on here? But like that goes to like, we want to be as open as we can, but at the same time, like we don't want everybody
Yep.
in the universe to know exactly what's going on. Granted,
Right.
we're doing a podcast, but it's if you share everything with everybody super willy-nilly, then it's going to bite you. It will.
So I think this right here, what we're doing right now, is how you build a relationship with your neighbors.
Oh yeah.
When you
Okay.
can sit down and have a few beverages and just talk. And like you said, you guys aren't here pointing fingers saying you need to do this and you need to do that because I'm doing that. You got to build a personal relationship
Mhm.
before you start trying to build a hunting relationship. Because if you jump in, it's just my thoughts. If you just jump in and start saying, well, this is this and this is that, and
This is what you got to do.
this is what you have to do, you're done.
Yep.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. I mean, look at when you were younger, right? When your mom and dad said you need to do this, what was the first thing you want to do? The opposite. You didn't want to do it because
Right.
why? Because they told you to. Maybe you
Yep.
guys did. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
I'm
no.
different, but
No.
when you're told to do something, you don't really feel like doing it. But if all of a sudden the decision is yours and
Yep.
you work together to come to a conclusion, then it's more satisfying.
100%.
But when people come in guns a-blazing saying, well, this is what we need to do and this is this and period, like that's where you burn those bridges immediately, and good luck trying to repair those.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, that's just my thought. So if you want to build a relationship, don't even talk hunting right away. Like just come over and have a beer with me.
Yep.
and just
Good
shoot the
conversation.
bull.
Yep.
Great.
Right? Because I don't know, I've seen it before where all of a sudden guns come in a-blazing from, like, I'll see other people with their neighbors and my neighbors, and I've seen it tons
Yep.
where people come in and try to impose their will on them, and all of a sudden,
Mhm.
yep, they're not getting it, and all hell breaks loose, and all of a sudden I'm not sharing pictures with them. How did you guys meet? It was in college. You
Having
had
beers.
a relationship,
Yeah.
having beers, bullshitting, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Now let's talk hunting. Oh, sweet, sounds
Yeah.
good. Let's do this. All right, sounds like a plan.
Yep.
And that's my advice out there. Don't even bring up hunting right away. Build a working
Yeah.
relationship first, just
Right.
as a neighbor relationship.
Yep.
Build that first, and then ease your way into hunting, and just be passive about it. And don't have rules. You guys kind of mentioned that you don't have rules. I mean, you gotta have standards in your mind of what you would like to shoot. But once you start saying no, nobody is shooting a 2-year-old. Well, I've run into this before too. Well, what's a 2-year-old?
Oh yeah.
One guy's going to claim a 2-year-old, no matter what, if it's got 8 points, it's a 2-year-old.
Right.
A 1-year-old is only a buck with spikes.
Yeah.
It can't have 8 points if it's a
Yep.
1-year-old. So just we talked about too. Your heart gets going.
Yep.
That's a shooter. If that's what you like shooting, because your heart's going, shoot it.
Go for it.
But let's go on the flip side here, and then we kind of hit it on it a little bit, and I kind of talked about it too. How to ruin that working relationship, and it's in my mind, you come in, you set rules, and tell people what you're doing, and expect the same out of them. Obviously, it's not going to work. But any other thoughts on that? Like try to keep people from, stirring the pot, with their neighbors.
I mean, like, obviously, it's all about the relationship. That's what I view it as.
How about stand placement?
Well, I mean, yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Like, that was gonna be my example, right? Like, if I set up a stand right on the property line and was like, it seemed like I was shooting across, and they're like, well, like, I mean, as much as it seems like we're conjoined, like we're good about like, hey, like, this is your land, this is my land,
Mhm.
and like and we're good about it, right? And that's what makes our relationship really good. Is like we know where the boundaries are, we don't push it,
Mhm.
and that's part of it. But granted, if all of a sudden I'm sneaking across 5-10 yards, like if I wasn't who I am, I would expect them to get mad at me,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And vice versa. It's that's how you can ruin it.
But I mean, sometimes
Right.
it's like for me, if I snuck across your property line like 5 or 10 yards, I would get a gut wrenching gut ache.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I'd be
Yeah.
like,
If you're human.
this is
Oh,
wrong.
100%. There's times where I've gone and it's like, I feel like I'm too close and I'm 100 yards away, and I'm
Yeah.
like, geez, like I'm feeling guilty,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
Less than 100, but but like I guess we don't have the personalities where we don't like worry about it for us. But like I have hunted other properties, permission properties, where kill a nice buck, then all of a sudden there's a stand there the next year. This was somebody else that has permission. It's like, oh
Yeah.
what the heck?
All
Like,
of them go to that spot.
right? It's like
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
you knew
All
It has to
roads
be.
lead to Rome.
Even though that deer's
so
gone.
it's like that's a good way to ruin it, is to cross the boundaries, figuratively and physically crossing the boundaries.
And believe it or not, there was like an instance where we were one of the permission properties that we're on that also butts up to Josh's and ours, is like, we try to lay that line even on our on a permission property. I'm not gonna come on a permission property and be over the line or pushing the boundary on Josh's close to it.
But now, granted, I will say this: like, in my side, if they ever shot across line and they shot a great big buck, I'm happy.
Mhm.
Well, like I would never be mad.
What
But
are you doing?
No,
but like just because we have such a good relationship,
Yeah.
Right.
as much as I just said, like we're good about things because we are good about it. But if there was ever an instance where, like, how many times have I told you, like, hey, like, go up and kill that turkey on the pipeline?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
if you hear one up there, freaking go
Yeah.
after it, right?
Mhm.
And like, it's like again, we all want to see each other successful. So like our relationship's a little bit different, but like, I should have phrased what I said earlier. It's like how to ruin a relationship. Like, that's a good way to ruin it for a lot of people. For us, that there's probably a little more gray. As much as we are good about the lines and
Yep.
everything, like if they had an opportunity at the biggest, like a turd incher, which we have never had, but if there was one and it was 5 yards across the fence line, like I'm thinking, like, please shoot that, like,
Yeah.
because like that no one might get it,
Right.
or it might run 5 miles away and somebody else shoots it, and we're all sitting there going, well, damn it, that's the
Yeah.
buck that
Yeah.
we felt like,
Yeah.
as much as you don't want to feel ownership over deer,
Right.
Right.
You feel it. You feel
if
it.
That's
you
just-
don't feel
Yeah.
it, if like the buck I shot this year, like I knew these guys, I didn't think that buck was in my wheelhouse.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as soon as I shot it, I'm pumped about it. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, I was like,
Oh no.
Those guys might be mad.
I'm like, like I know how much like that they put in for that deer.
Yeah.
Right. And I just happened to catch it the day it took us excursion, and it was on a stroll.
oh, I mean, I was in the stand that day,
So was
and
I.
that was the buck I thought I was gonna see. Honestly,
Right. And that was
And
not
I'm
the one I
like,
thought I was going to
Yep.
see.
did my heart sink?
Of course. A little bit, right? Don't lie. A little bit.
I would say a little bit.
Josh.
Damn it. But I mean, I'm still
that's-
pumped. 'Cause
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
It's like, when can I come over?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see him.
Well, it's
When
like
are we going?
when Bill Winke talked about, like, when that story's done and that deer is no longer in the woods. You're just like part of you. Those
Bittersweet.
pictures.
Yeah, it's
on
bittersweet.
an
That's a great way
encounter,
to put it.
That's what it is.
Yep.
More so, like,
Oh, 100%.
okay, well, that's that. I'm mad. It's
yeah.
that chapter is closed.
Yeah.
You know, but then it's like, all right, we're going to
Who's
have a beer
next?
at the
Yep.
beer in the shed.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
we're getting putting a buck up.
We're
But
getting
it's-
we're getting some blackberry.
It's
Yes.
Like I felt that was
but
Big Nine.
that's
You know.
Yeah.
this is all because of the relationship you guys built
Exactly.
before you started
100%.
hunting, and even knowing you were hunting next to each other.
Yep.
And I think that's what we got to take from this podcast, is that when it comes to having neighbors out there who are hunting, build a friendly relationship before you even move into hunting, and
Yep.
things like this can happen.
Yeah.
Like neighbors can work together. And now look at, yes, you guys shot some nice bucks this year, but being that you're working together, you're just building that next crop.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And
For
it's just
sure.
going to keep refueling itself year after year because of the working relationship you have. If you didn't have this, well, guess what? Be a little longer before another one comes around,
Right,
the size of the
exactly.
deer that you guys shot. So
And-
props to you guys for doing that. What?
I'd like to put out there too, of like people that, you might have that relationship with your neighbor that says, well, they won't care if I go track a deer over there. Call them anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
It
call
goes a
them
long
anyway.
ways.
Yeah.
Goes a long ways.
Yep.
Yep.
I
it's the
mean, and
subtleties.
then, it's just the subtleties is like, you don't feel like in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, they'd rather have you recover that deer. But it'd be like, hey, maybe you want to come out and track it with me.
Yeah.
Maybe they know where that bedding area is he's going to circle around and be like, or he's making this run. Let's leave him overnight.
Yeah.
That neighbor might know that you don't.
It's going back to what I said before, was when you let it be the other person's decision, things work out well.
Oh yeah.
When you want it to be your decision and you
Butt
just
heads.
do what you want to do, now we got issues. So yeah, call. And one piece of advice a former conservation officer told me was, don't wait until you kill the deer. Contact those people beforehand where that deer could possibly run before season, and just let them know beforehand. I did that this year already, or last year, and I'll do it again this year. I just reached out to the neighbors and just said, hey, if a deer ends up wandering over on your property, is that okay if I could, track it? And every one of them was fine with it. But guess what? Every one of them wouldn't be fine with it if I didn't ask them and just
Exactly,
walked over. Why?
exactly.
Because
And a lot of
they
times
didn't say you
It's
could.
and we're so glad you asked.
Yeah.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say, one minor thing too. It's like, again, going back, we're not managing a great big property.
Mhm.
We're not, we're not killing great super giants all the time. We've killed some really nice deer, but
Yep.
I think one thing I see a lot with other hunters, and I'm starting to get over the hump, and I think you guys are getting there too, where it's like, originally it's like there's only one big deer out there,
Yeah.
and that's in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And if somebody else shoots it, it's like, that was my one chance that might be my only chance the rest of my life. Well, now that we've been doing some of these small things, pseudo managing, doing habitat improvements where we can, doing more food plots, doing more strategy, passing on some of the smaller deer so they can get through the cracks. Well, now it's like when somebody shoots a big one, in my mind, I'm to the point where like, there's going to be another one.
Yep.
Or it's like
So that anxiety and stress of the hunting season, it goes down. As much as you do get attached to certain deer, at least now when one hits the ground, it's like, well, there's going to be another. I know that there's going to be another one.
Yeah, you got to be optimistic.
Yep.
And
if there's not another one, I'm going somewhere else where there is.
Yep.
I mean,
No,
and
no.
some of that's just personal mentality, but
Yeah.
we've been pretty lucky that when, we've shot some nice deer, and there's always another crop of good deer that we get excited for.
Fill in the void.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Every time.
You guys obviously got a great working relationship, and this is a perfect example of good things happen to good people, and you guys are being good to each other, and obviously it paid off for both sides this year, and hopefully many more to come.
Hopefully for Brando.
Yeah, there we go. All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up, guys. I appreciate you guys coming over and joining me.
thank
It was a lot of fun, and I thought there was a lot of great information there. Thank everybody listening to another episode of the Minnesota Rack Stars podcast, and I hope you guys have a great day. Well, thanks for tuning in this week, everybody. I hope you're able to take some of this information from this podcast and apply it to your own hunting camps and neighbors and all that good stuff. But I think the biggest point to take away from this podcast is, good things happen when you work together with other people and, not become so greedy in the end. I mean, there's that time to be competitive, and I think that's why we all hunt, because we want to be competitive, we want to challenge and all that good stuff. But in the end, I think it's more important to be a good people person and develop good relationships with people. And when you're able to, develop a good relationship with others, good things usually end up happening in the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. If you would please give us a 5-star rating on this podcast, and also like and share all the information that we put out there on our social media pages. Check out our YouTube page. You got a lot of content out there as well. Also, if you would, check out some of our sponsors' pages as well. Also, we have Arctic Shield, Domain Outdoor, J&R Outdoors, Skullcraft, The Fish Guide, Tactacam, and also Fourth Arrow Camera Arms. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.